Welcome, guys. Here we are starting live. Here. So we will count down for Bitcoin halving. As you can see, we are 24 minutes away from Bitcoin halving, and it's a significant history in the Bitcoin's life cycle, as we know. So let's look at what's happening in the coin market cap, where we can see all the coins. As usual, if we sort our coins with market cap, Bitcoin is the most significant and coin and has the highest amount of market cap. Bitcoin, as you can see, the circulating supply is right now 18 million. Bitcoin is out. So when we talk about Bitcoin halving, we are talking about that Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoin in total, and every 4 years the Bitcoin generation, the Bitcoin inflation rate, or the Bitcoin supply gets halved. So we are in the juncture of another halving, and we are exactly 28 minutes away from it. So let's look at what's happening in other currencies. As we know, there was a price hike. The price was going up in around a week ago, but then there was a pre-halving dump, meaning like the price just went down very quickly. And if we look at the trading view, we will see how that went with all the Bitcoin buyers and sellers. Right now I'm using Twitch for broadcasting, so we can see here the trading view, and we can see how Bitcoin's price has been fluctuating a lot over time. So I have used a couple indicators here. So if we put it down and let's see, so this is the Bitcoin's price over last few years, from 2014 up until 2020, and we can see that how Bitcoin is fluctuating very quickly. I just got an alert that Bitcoin price has just moved up 0.51% in 3 bars in 3 1-minute candle. So if we look at it, Bitcoin's price is going crazy here. Yep. So there was a massive dump earlier today, that is 11th May, and there was a big dump here around 12:38. Actually, Bitcoin's price in the morning from 6 a.m. it started going up, and it went all the way up. It crossed the 9,000 again, and then suddenly just before just few hours ago it started dumping. So what's happening right now in the order book? If we look at the order book now, we see there's a lot of sellers and a lot of buyers. So currently the Bitcoin price is hanging around 8,478. So what was our daily high and daily low value? If we look at it, these are some zones, support and resistance zones. As you can see, this is the $4,000 zones, and many believe that Bitcoin's price most likely will never go beneath this zone. But as you can see, from March, when because of the coronavirus, when that almost 30% dump happened, 40% price decrease happened, it actually came down all the way up to 3,808. So if we look at the 4-hour time frame, we can see it a little bit better. So if we look at 1-hour time frame, we can see how long it lasted. So basically that price decline had lasted only for 2 hours. There was only single 1-hour window there around 10 p.m. Eastern Central Time, United States, on 12th March, when the price was around 3,838, and then Bitcoin price started going up, and people are speculating that before the Bitcoin halving happens, Bitcoin's price may go up, and that speculation was correct. And as you can see that from since that March 12 price decline, Bitcoin's price was steadily going up. Okay, Bitcoin's price is going up again. It's now reached $8,650. So I was talking about how Bitcoin's price was revamping from that massive decline, and then Bitcoin's price reached all the way up to 10,000, and everybody started being very optimistic about Bitcoin's price. But then, to everybody's surprise, to surprise everyone, Bitcoin's price actually declined again, almost 20%, almost 15%. That is on 10th May. And in fact, I personally was very surprised, very shocked because of this decline. I was optimistic that Bitcoin will probably reach, at least if we look at what was the last high, that was around 10,500. So I was thinking that Bitcoin's price will probably reach at least that point or cross that resistance level there. So I'm talking about this line. Now one can maybe argue that Bitcoin is still in a bear market if we follow this trend line here. So if we follow this trend line all the way, as you can see, Bitcoin's price is constantly going down over time. So we can see that one can argue that up until before we actually if Bitcoin's price cannot, let's say Bitcoin's price, if it does not cross this line, then we cannot say completely that Bitcoin is in a bull market. And definitely a lot of people, including me, we thought when this price hike started happening here, there was a massive bull run. If we look at the 1 minute time frame here, so we were optimistic. Maybe 5 minute time frame, it's easy to see. We're optimistic during this bull run where Bitcoin started around from 8,492 and it went all the way up to 8% here. It is 11th May. We're talking about, actually, if we go to 15 minute time frame, we're talking about this rise here that started around 7,769, and we can see how Bitcoin's price went 30% up. Basically, all the loss that happened during March, as you can see, the loss that happened here, that has been recouped, and it came to the level of 9,000. But again, Bitcoin's price started going down here. Okay, so what's the update with our halving countdown? So we are 20 minutes away from it, as we can see here. And let's look at what's happening in other cryptocurrencies. Normally what happens is that most of these other cryptocurrency, they are in the exchanges. If we look at some of these exchanges, Binance has the highest volume. And what is the Bitcoin dominance now? So Bitcoin's dominance is 67.2%. What it means by Bitcoin's dominance is that how dominant Bitcoin is against all the other cryptocurrencies. So if Bitcoin's dominance is less than 50%, that means all the other cryptocurrencies are doing relatively well. So if we look at 24-hour change, as we can see, some of the coins which are more speculative, and not all of them are in very reliable exchanges, because there are a lot of exchanges which are not as regulated as most other exchanges are. By regulation I mean trustworthiness in some way. Maybe regulation is not the correct word there. So there's another website I like to look at these coins, that is Coin Paprika. And here we can also see 7-day changes. Now if we look at it like this, so that is previous 100. So if right now there is nothing in my favorite. So what's 24-hour changes? So we can see there's lots of volatility, especially the 0x. This coin is working very well. Actually I think this is a very reputed coin, which is in 83 exchanges now, even on Binance, and it's seeing a lot of gains there. Okay, now there's another way we can compare the relative performance, and a lot of coins are doing pretty bad here. 24-hour changes, and if I try to find Bitcoin here, so that is the number one coin. It has gone down, as we have just seen here. So let's look at the 1 minute. Yes, Bitcoin's price gained last 1 minute 255. There Bitcoin's price went all the way up to 8,625, and that is probably the lowest value for today, I believe. If we look at the 3 minute, yes, so Bitcoin's price 8,201, that's the lowest value for today. 8,000, so $8,000 in is acting as a support. We can take a look at the VPVR, which shows us for different prices which are the different price zones where most trading volume has been shown. So let me remove these zones. If we remove these zones, we can see here. So if we are looking into if Bitcoin's price go down, which can be our potential support. So as you can see that Bitcoin's price can be very volatile in this region from below 8,000 up until 7,700. If we try to remember, so the biggest support that Bitcoin has in this window that I'm showing is 7,123. We can see a lot of trading volume during this price zone. So that means Bitcoin's price, if it goes down, it will most likely, okay, Bitcoin's price moving down another 0.5%, and we can see this is a potential, it may come down to 7,538. Right now for today it's mostly 8,300 is kind of acting like its support. As you see, 8,855 was a strong support there, and the price broke below here on 9th May, and then Bitcoin is trying to that 15% price drop, and from then on Bitcoin is trying to gain back. The bull market is trying to take over, but it's not being able to. But at the same time, we can see the lowest value is there is no lower lows, meaning this dump that happened did not came below the last lowest price during previous dump. So we cannot tell completely that it is already the price. The bear market, short-term bear market started again. So we can look at some other indicators. So right now I'm looking at the daily frame. So as we can see that during that period when Bitcoin so that is 29 April, so we're talking about on 5th May, that is around 15% gain. We can see the RSI. So when RSI values, look at the RSI. So RSI values, when it crosses above 70, what this means is that a lot of people are buying Bitcoin. That means there's very much interest in buying, and Bitcoin has been overbought. So normally this is an oscillating indicator, meaning when it reaches all the way up to 80 or 90, even in sometimes at one point I think it has reached 95 in some all-time high, then it actually goes down, it reverses, and then you will see that when there's a massive amount of price decline, that means all the people are freaking out and they're selling Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is oversold. So if the price goes below 30, that means Bitcoin is oversold. So you can see right now after that price hike, Bitcoin selling started, and most likely at a point this oscillator will reverse and we will see the Bitcoin price hopefully will go up. Typically, let's look at what happened during other Bitcoin halving period. Let me remove this line here. Okay, let's go back to the Bitcoin halving. We are only 12 minutes away from Bitcoin halving. So within 15 minutes we will see Bitcoin generation goes down. Let me explain a little what we mean by Bitcoin halving. So we can go to blockexplorer.com and we can take a look at some blocks or blockchain info. Okay, so this is the recent high. So if we look at here, so when will the halving will have, basically this is the number, this is the height number. As we know, blockchain means that we have a chain of blocks. So every 10 minutes, on average every 10 minutes, new blocks are being created. There's only 3 blocks left, and on average, not exactly 10 minutes, sometimes one block creation may take 15 minutes, one can take 7 minutes, one can take 6 minutes. On average it takes 10 minutes. So after 3 blocks, the next 3 blocks will, if we look at 6,200, that is 629,997. Yes, so that has 2,793 transactions, and block reward. So this is what we are looking at. So let me show you some other. Let's see the first block that we have. The first block height height, let's say 100. Okay, so that's the 100 block which has been created in 2009. As you can see, the block reward is 50 Bitcoin. Okay, and then we will look at, maybe let's hide this now, and we find an indicator with halving, Bitcoin halving countdown. Okay, that is Bitcoin halving in 1 day. That was the previous one. We no longer need this. I'm looking to show an indicator that shows all the Bitcoin halving in the past. Halving. Blockchain fundamentals. Okay. So I believe Bitcoin started in 2009. The first halving happened in 2013, and the second halving happened in 2000. Every 4 years the halving happens. So the second halving happened in 2017. Maybe we can Bitcoin halving logarithmic chart. Okay, so this is the chart I'm looking at. This is the chart we're looking at. Okay, yes. So as we know, this starts in 2000. The first halving happened in 17 January 2013. Let me make it bigger. Okay, we'll have to be careful about the halving when it's happening. 7 minutes left. Okay, refresh the page. 3 blocks left. Okay, so the first halving happened in 17 January 2013. So let's go back to the chart. What it means, we can remove this indicator. This is a daily time frame, meaning every candle, we can show a different kind of candle. Every candle is a daily candle. So these are called OHLC candles, meaning open. We have 4 prices here: open, high, low, and close. As we can see here, open, high, low, close. So if it's a green candle, that means the closing price is above the open price. So typically the base of the rectangle is our opening price, and the ceiling, this is the floor of the rectangle, let's say, and the ceiling of the rectangle is our closing price. On the other hand, in a red candle, the ceiling is our opening price, and the floor of the rectangle is our closing price. So if the closing price is below the open price, that means price has declined. If the closing price is above the open price, that is price increased. And we can see this line here, and this is the low point for that day, low price for that day, and this is the high price for that day. So if the candle is well spreaded, that means the price has been well spreaded over this entire price zone. Okay, on the other hand, if we see there's a small hammer like, we call it doji sometimes, small hammer like structure, that means price have fluctuated, but at the same time most of the Bitcoin price were concentrated, or opening and closing price is very close to each other. So normally after a big price decline, as you can see there was a big price decline here, we see this kind of candles. After a big price increase, we also see this kind of candles. Okay, so Bitcoin halving. So the first Bitcoin halving happened. I'm explaining to all this for people who are new to the space. Of course, people who have been trading for a long time don't need this basic information. They already know what these candles mean. The first halving happened in 2013, as we see here. 2013, the first halving, and then in 2017 the second halving happened, and then in 2020 this is the third halving is happening now. Okay, that is today. So let's go back. It seems like we gained some time here, because this time is just an approximation. Of when the halving will happen. Ultimately, the block generation, when the block will be generated, this when the three we showed earlier that it needs 3 more blocks for the halving to happen. Okay, now as I said, on average a block creation takes 10 minutes. So that was an approximate time that we saw. Now it seemed like it's taking a little bit longer time to create those blocks. So we will have 2 more blocks, and then the halving happened. And I was explaining that the first halving happened in 2013, 17 January 2013. And if we look at the price, what happened in the price, if we look at January of 2013, it's March of 2013. So if we look at January of 2013 here, so January 2013, so the halving happened around here, and you see there from then on Bitcoin price went up all the way. The first time Bitcoin's price reached 229 from before the halving it was around $13, and from there it went all the way up to $229. So what does it mean by halving? As I showed here, Blockchain Explorer. So from 2009 when Bitcoin started up until 2013, so let's say we search with block height 10,000. So if we go block height 10,000 is still not. So if we go 100,000, how far we go? If we go 100, that is 2010. So we'll have to go all the way. Let's say we go 900,000. Did we go 990,000? Takes us to 2000. So that means if we go, let's say 150,000, that takes us to 2011. So if we go to 300,000, how far we go? We go in 2014. Okay, that means let me show you. This was the block height here. This is the recent block. Let me find, let's say, the number 10th block in the chain, that is in 2009 January 8, and then that is 2014, that is 320, that is block height 300,000. So let's find 250,000, that is 2013. Okay, we'll have to go a little far. Okay, this is what I want to show. The first halving, initially from 2009 up until 2013, every block in the chain would produce 50 Bitcoin, okay, per block. And who gets this reward, this 50 Bitcoin? The miner. Blocks are mined by computational process that all these miners, they're using GPUs or ASICs to mine these blocks. They are rewarded 50 Bitcoin per block. The first 4 years, as we can see, Bitcoin halving happened. In 2013 January, the Bitcoin halving started. So maybe we can start finding a little bit before. So this one was 250,000. Let's start with 225,000. 225,000 takes us to 2013 March. So we'll have to go to 2013 January. 200,000, let's say. So if we start with 200,000, that is 2012. That means it's a little bit forward. 100,000. Okay. 220,000. I probably should have noted this down so that I can find much faster, but it's fine. It's kind of fun to look into the blockchain anyway. This is such a revolution, right? 220,000, 215,000 block. Okay, nice. We're 215,000, so let's say 214,000. So we found the first block halving here. A little bit far. That is 2012. Okay, 214,000. Let's look at 213,000. Okay, 213,000. Let's say 200,000. Okay, so as we can see here, so I cannot find the exact block. Maybe we can look it up later. But as you can see, up until from the number 1 up until 200, around 200,000, every block generated 50 Bitcoin. Okay, so what does blocks have? Blocks have all these transactions from one address to other address. The people are sending Bitcoin, but then there's a specific transaction where we call it coin-based transactions, newly generated coin. So basically, the Bitcoin blockchain, or you can call Bitcoin God or whatever. So we have, the Bitcoin has, when Bitcoin was created, it has been said that there's 21 million Bitcoin. So gradually, with every block, that 50 Bitcoin out of that 21 million Bitcoin is given away or earned by these miners for their proof of work that they have computed the hash for this block. So we'll talk about the technical aspects later with more videos. And as we can see, this is the miner address. Okay, this miner is getting around 50 Bitcoin plus some transaction fee. So 50 Bitcoin plus all the transaction fees he can gather. Okay, so then as we see, this is the first halving. This is just before first halving, and then when the first halving happened, as we see, if we go to 220,000, the first halving happened, meaning like 50 Bitcoin. Now with each block, miners earn only 25 Bitcoin plus the transaction fee from all the other transactions. Now if we go so the next one is 2000 every 4 years, so next one will be in 2017, right? So if we go all the way up to 900,000, so actually maybe I am going too far. 400,000, that is going to be 2016. So if we go to 450,000, that is going to be 2017. Yes, we found the second halving. So from this chart, as we have seen, the second halving happened in 9 July 2016, and we can see here that we have found the second halving, meaning 50 Bitcoin, then 25 Bitcoin, now 12.5 Bitcoin. So from 2016 up until 2020, these 4 years, if we look at the most recent, most recent block here, if we look at the most recent block here, if we go to the blockchain, and if we go to the BTC blockchain, as we can see, okay, the halving have begun. We are getting 6.25 Bitcoin, is it not? Let's see this Bitcoin halving. Yep, Bitcoin halving happened, guys. Bitcoin halving happened. So the current block is 630,000 already we have reached, and let's verify that. Let's verify it. That is 630,000. The first time 6.25 Bitcoin is rewarded. So if we look at just one before, so if we look at 629,000 here, so if I look at 629 here, 29,600, that is 12.5. So for the first time in Bitcoin's history, 6.25 Bitcoin from now on. So up until 629,000, not 629, yes, so basically 629,999, right? So that is 12.5. Yep, up until 629,999 block, we have received, the miners have been awarded 12.5 Bitcoin, and from this moment on 630,000 miners will start getting 6.25 Bitcoin, and this is going to go on for another 4 years. That means in 2024, after a certain amount of Bitcoin block generation, this will be halved into 6.25 divided by 2 is going to be 3.125 Bitcoin. And that is how Bitcoin's inflation rate, basically, there's a nice chart between Bitcoin versus gold inflation rate. Let me see. This is gold inflation rate. Let me see whether I can find it. So images, yes. Yep, this is the image. As we can see, Bitcoin's inflation rate was more than gold's inflation rate up until this point. So 2020 here, as we can see, this red one is the Bitcoin Bitcoin inflation. So this is the Bitcoin inflation, and I believe this is the gold inflation, and Bitcoin inflation was above gold. Now as you can see, Bitcoin inflation so what is inflation rate? Meaning like generation rate. So how much gold or Bitcoin is being generated or produced or going out in the market, on the free market. And as you can see, Bitcoin's inflation rate is now below or almost equal to the gold inflation rate. I don't know the exact number here. And as we can see that eventually Bitcoin's inflation rate will be, after 4 years, its inflation rate will be even lower than gold. So as we know, anything that gains value, that needs to be rare, and also that needs to be used, or that needs to or people need to have interest in acquiring them. So as we all know, we all like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, everybody wants um, everybody wants to acquire as much as gold they can, or as much as valuable asset they can. So Bitcoin as a digital asset is much more rare than gold from now on. Okay, so we have seen, I hope I could explain what it means by Bitcoin inflation rate halving down, meaning Bitcoin generation through the mining process is being halved down every 4 years. And what is happening in terms of the price. So Bitcoin countdown started. Okay, here we can see when is the next halving will happen. So as we know, 630,000. So when Bitcoin will reach the height of 840,000, that is, let me do a quick math, 840,000 minus 630,000, that is going to be, so after another 210,000 blocks, which is most likely going to be in 1367 days from now on, that 6.25 will turn into 3.125 coins. So what people think that means miners, as we know that Bitcoin mining is a very computationally expensive process, because how does mining happens? If we know that all these miners using their GPUs or using their ASICs, at the beginning miners used to use simple computers. We actually collect every miner. If I explain it a little, so I need to go to the blockchain explorer again, and in the blockchain, so at every 10-minute duration, miners try to collect these transactions. All the miners who are interested in mining Bitcoin, they collect these transactions and they create this block header, and the only thing what they do is that the nonce, so this value, they change this value from, let's say, value 1 up until 2 to the power 29. That's a large number, and every time they change the nonce, they make a new hash out of the block. And this is a cryptographic hash function. People who studied cryptography knows that if you hash a block, what it means is that you have a function, hashing function, and you input, that takes an input and that produces an output which is 256 bit long. Okay, in this case, for example, Bitcoin uses SHA-256, so that's why I think it uses double SHA-256, that we can take a look later. And so this SHA-256 function takes this information, all the transaction information and all the header information as a textual information, takes data, and then you hash it and produce this 256 bit number. Now this hashing function has a property that there is no relationship between the input and the output, meaning like you can never predict what the output will be given the input. That means it's almost a random number, that 256 bit numbers. So let's say initially my nonce is 1, I get a 256 bit value, and then I increase the nonce from 1 to 2, I will get another 256 bit value, and there is no relationship. You cannot say just because the nonce value are close to each other, the output value are also close to each other. No, there is no such correlation, no such guarantee. That's why it's completely random. That's why you call it a mining process. It's a lottery. It's kind of like a lottery process. So basically all the miners doing the same computation, they are changing this nonce value and they are generating this 256 bit number, And the goal is to find out a 256-bit number which has certain amount of zeros at the beginning, and how many zeros we want is ultimately um, determined by the network, by the Bitcoin network. And Bitcoin network, by how many zeros is required in every 10 minutes, Bitcoin network determines the difficulty of the network. So let's say the goal is to have a block generation on average 10 minutes. So let's say a block gets generated in 5 minutes, or in 10 minutes, then or in 7 minutes. That means the network will increase the difficulty so that the next block, let's say the current block is generated in 6 minutes, then the next block will be generated in 14 minutes. So in total, for 2 blocks to be created, it took 20 minutes. So if we divide it by 2, that means on average the 2 blocks got created in 10 minutes. So that's the goal of the network, that it wants a constant, it tries to have a constant average over time. So that, because if we generate more blocks, that means more Bitcoin is being produced. But Bitcoin is regulating the generation of Bitcoin by enforcing the difficulty, and that difficulty is related to how many zeros are in front of the 256-bit value that the miners create after hashing a block. So that's the technical side of it. But I just gave simple example. Bitcoin doesn't do it, doesn't change the difficulty every with every block. I think Bitcoin looks at least I forgot the exact numbers, but looks at a span of maybe 2000 blocks, and it tries to average so every 2000 blocks or 2000 something blocks, Bitcoin changes the difficulty. It's not that Bitcoin changes the difficulty every block. So we can talk about it more later. So that is how Bitcoin block generation is done. So we have reached the Bitcoin halving countdown, and now what I was meaning is that means, look at here, what is the consequence of it, meaning from now on, after this point of block height 630,000, miners are no longer getting as much reward as they used to get. They used to get 12.25 Bitcoin after doing all the work. Now they are not getting that much Bitcoin. That means if you are not a very rich miner, you don't have a lot of computational power, you're already using so much electricity, so maybe your cost is so high to mine Bitcoin, so you will probably go out of business now, because you can no longer compete with other miners. So a lot of small miners will be going out of business, and that may have some consequence, because the only way you can be in the market is that Bitcoin's price need to go up, because your electricity cost is almost the same, right? But no longer, if you are getting 12 Bitcoin before, let's say 1 Bitcoin is $10,000, that means you are making $120,000 with every block that you are producing, or you are rewarded. But now you are making way less, right? You are making now $62,000 now. So you can no longer pay your electricity bill. So the only way you can come back to the business if Bitcoin's price go up. So it's kind of like a cyclical argument in some ways, that this is the reason most likely Bitcoin's price will go up. So you can think of, in one way, is that Bitcoin's supply went down. Bitcoin is no longer as much as Bitcoin is being created as it used to just few minutes earlier. From now on for next 4 years, and it's going to go down again. That means Bitcoin is being more rare. Let's say all of the people, let's say now more, let's say we don't, all the people who are interested in Bitcoin, that number is constant. Now if more people become interested in Bitcoin, that means Bitcoin's price will go up. Now you can think it as a Ponzi scheme. People say, like, because new people will have to buy the Bitcoin with higher price, but at the same time, people who have been in Bitcoin community know that it is not, because Bitcoin this is not the only reason Bitcoin is valuable. Bitcoin is providing us a 24/7 decentralized monetary decentralized payment network, where we can send Bitcoin from one location to another location without any third party, without any central authority. So Bitcoin has a lot of value in terms of all this competition that's happening, that's behind Bitcoin's generation. Bitcoin's value come from that. Bitcoin's value come from the utility that Bitcoin is ubiquitous. Anywhere Bitcoin can be produced, if you anywhere Bitcoin can be sent, and also Bitcoin cannot be banned. As long as the internet survives, Bitcoin will survive. So, and at the same time, there are lots of other properties. So we went through the Bitcoin halving procedure. Now let's look back. Now what happens? Now I'll come back. So the reason I was talking about this dynamic is, this is the Bitcoin halving just happened, and we can see here. Okay, now what I wanted to show, so what if we do price analysis, we know that after each halving, as I just mentioned, the miners, for them to be in the business, they need the Bitcoin's price need to go up. So that's what actually typically happen. I mean, it's not a guarantee. I mean, as I said, the interest need to be there for Bitcoin. Market need to want Bitcoin. More people need to, Bitcoin's utility need to increase in many ways. So, but what we historically have seen, every time Bitcoin's halving happened, you see Bitcoin's price went up to almost 763%. Next halving happened in 2017. Next halving happened after 2013. 4 years after that, in 2017, Bitcoin's halving happened. Now what happened then? So as we can see, that's when Bitcoin's price meteorically rose. Oh my god. So from 200, that was 1100, the first high. Then in 2016, when around 2017, when the halving happened, Bitcoin's price, this was the biggest hype, when Bitcoin's price went all the way up to 3000%. And then a lot of people bought Bitcoin at that time, but Bitcoin saw a bear market here all the way up until 2019. And as we know, last year summer, there was, Bitcoin started going up in 2019, then it came down all the way up here in 2020, then in February it went down, then the coronavirus came, Bitcoin's price went down, then again Bitcoin's price started going up. Now the question is, will Bitcoin's price go up? And the fundamentals that I explained so far tells us that Bitcoin price will most likely go up, but that depends on the interest. Okay, any network depends, the life of a network depends on its users. We know Bitcoin is valuable in terms of what it can provide, in terms of many good properties it has. Even though I envisioned, I got into the Bitcoin idea of Bitcoin back in 2012 actually, and uh, I have seen many ups and downs. Still, it's highly volatile and it's very dangerous to speculate what the price will be. There's another idea that people think. It depends on if you think Bitcoin with respect to dollar, then Bitcoin's price is going up and down. But on the other hand, if you truly believe in Bitcoin, you don't really give much uh, give much credibility towards this dollar valuation. For you, the more Bitcoin you have, the better, because you understand the true value of Bitcoin. Because in future, because as we know that dollar is in there's a huge inflation in terms of dollars because government prints money, and the dollar values will always change depending on a lot of aspects of it. And definitely we live in a real world where we buy things, where we shop, where we buy houses, buy cars with dollars. That's why we always think in terms of dollars. But US dollar is right now the dominant currency. If you look at the history of fiat currencies, most currencies fail after a few hundred years. So maybe in our lifetime dollar will still be the most valuable, but if you understand the true potential of Bitcoin, then in future Bitcoin may be acting like a digital gold, or who knows, it can be the currency. Because if we look at lots of countries like Zimbabwe, what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in Argentina, where their currencies almost failed, or even in Venezuela, there people want to buy Bitcoin actually because their currency fluctuates even more than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's value, depending on what context you are thinking, Bitcoin has values. So what's happening in terms of short-term values of Bitcoin? So Bitcoin's seems like, if we look at the current price, it's recovering, it seems. Here look at my other window. So now the question is, there's sometimes people talk about a post-halving dump. Is actually, you can already saw a pre-halving dump here. So will there be more dump because people want to accumulate more Bitcoin? So I actually elaborated more than on topics more than I actually thought I would. So I really like this Glassnode Studio analysis. They actually do on-chain analysis, and one of their indicator here is called net unrealized profit or loss. So we can take a look at some of these indicators. What is this metric? Net unrealized profit loss is the difference between relative unrealized profit and relative unrealized loss. For more information, see this article. So if you want to read more, you'll have to go to this article. So it shows different phases in the life cycle of Bitcoin. So we can see from almost 2000 before 2011. So when we see this red curves here, when the prices are red here, so I believe this is the Bitcoin's value in logarithmic scale. This black, so can I hide this? Yes, I can hide this. So this is the Bitcoin's price in a logarithmic scale. As you can see, it went up. So this was in 2011, that was in 2013, in 2017. So this is the post-halving price increase. So now the question is, will we see such another hike just like this? So if we draw a line like this here, so people say that Bitcoin's price will follow that price model. Nobody knows. So the previous price tells us that, and according to fundamentals, according to the supply demand mechanism that I explained, according to the miner expectation, that's what it should happen. But with the assumption, as I said, whether Bitcoin will remain useful or whether interest in Bitcoin will still be there. Now, what this net unrealized profit loss shows is basically when we have blue here, that's when we have the greed. Okay, so every time there's blue, there's almost like an all-time new high here. There's a blue new high here. So when there's a red, that means there's like capitulation, or there's a hope or fear. So when there's yellow, that's optimism. So as we can see, after that is 2018, so we had like a long capitulation period, and then there was hope and fear. So we are still in the hope and fear. We can see what's happening recently here. So we are in the hope and fear phase, meaning most likely people who are believer in Bitcoin, they are accumulating Bitcoin. So the question is how long it will last, right? When will the price start increasing again? When will we reach this green period where people have a strong belief? But as what is we can see is that it's a cyclical. Any market, we have a cycle from greed and fear. So there's another interesting index, that Bitcoin fear and greed index. So we can see right now there's fear. Okay, so if it's the more left it goes, it's people are more fearful. So it's neutral. 48 it's not extremely fearful right now, but I believe a week ago everybody was very optimistic here. So we can see here, as you can see, that's what I mean. Around May 10 2020, it went up. But as we can see in 2019, they started collecting. I think we can have max. So the maximum amount of greed was in 2000 last year summer. So every time Bitcoin starts going up, people have the FOMO, fear of missing out. They start buying. Then it gets overbought, and then traders typically sell. So some people hate traders because they just want to make money. They don't care about Bitcoin network itself. For them, Bitcoin is just another speculative asset where they want to make money. Ooh, we can just see the price started going up here. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 minutes. Okay, 2% up in 4 minutes. But if we look at the other index, we can see, you see, the overbought. So let's see how long it takes for it to come back. So that's why RSI is a very strong, very useful metric here. So in the morning we have seen that Bitcoin's price went up to almost 9,188. Then if you look at, so Bitcoin is highly volatile. That's why it's very easy to, it's like 10% drop in a single, how many bars there actually? That is 7 hour. In 7 hour, 10% drop. So let's say you have put $1,000, so you have lost $100 in 7 hours. And there are days I have lost a lot of money. And sometimes trading is a psychological game, and sometimes you speculate more than you should. Sometimes you just cannot take the risk because as we can see, typically the price is within a very short span of time the price goes up, as you can see, within 2 hours. So let's say you are busy in those 2 hours and you come back and you see Bitcoin's price already gain 8% and you lost the opportunity to buy Bitcoin. So that's why there are various trading techniques that you can have a conditional, depending on which exchange, which tools you are using. You create a condition. Okay, if I believe that, let's say, one possible strategy can be that, okay, Bitcoin's price went below the 70 value, the RSI value below 70, that means it's already oversold. Most likely it's going to go down. For example, now one can say, okay, it's already overbought, most likely it will go down. But sometimes just following one single indicator is not enough. There's more indicators like ADX indicator, which actually shows the trend. So every time this blue line starts going up, that means there's a trend, but it does not mean upward trend or a downward trend. When the red line is above the green line, that means it's a downward trend. As you can see, there's a price dump happening. On the other hand, when there's a green line upwards, for example, right now there's an upward trend. So it can be downward trend or upward trend. But the question is how long the trend will continue. It's very hard to say. So it's very hard to time the market, and that's why basically most traders end up losing money, because you will have to be very rational at every moment, and you will have to check your greed and fear. You'll have to be risky at times, then you will have to be very careful at times, and we are human being, and it's very hard to play market. But that doesn't mean that there aren't successful traders. There are people over time, professional traders, they get better at it, and just like a sportsman, just over time gets better. And there's only few people can do it. Just like in any successful arena, only few people can achieve certain kind of abilities. Here also, I guess, some traders who can be very good at what they do. Okay, now price speculation is always bad, meaning like you will have to be very rational. Maybe that's just the course of life, I guess. You will have to be rational in every moment, but at the same time you cannot always be. You will fail, and you will have to learn. You will have to get better at it. So the order book is something I am still trying to master what it means at looking at order books. So these are basically order books. These basically all the price that's being set right now is coming from here. So these are all the buyers, and these are all the red ones are the sellers. As we can see, there's a huge sell wall. What does it mean by sell wall? Meaning like, so this value you see $8,778, $8,780. So what it means, and then you see there's a value 64 in the left, or 91. What it means is that 91 bitcoins from here, from 8,733, the current price, up until $8,779, 91 bitcoins are for sale. Okay. On the other hand, we can see here, as we can see, 85 bitcoins are to be like there's interest of 85 bitcoins with this price range from 8,729 up until 8,679. So it's not a single trader, it's like all the traders. So that's why we have the concept of whales, meaning like, what if right now there's a big whale, or he wants to buy up all the bitcoins. So what will happen is, let's say someone just wants to buy 91 bitcoin. What will happen, all this bitcoin will depending on the price, if they put a price here, I can be a little mistaken, maybe professional traders can tell more, is that all these bitcoins will be bought up. This is like the exchange has a matching engine. So if that's why uh, price can be easily manipulated in many ways. So a good trader, I believe, I'm still not one. I believe they look at, for example, this sell wall does not mean does not continue to exist. So this order book continuously change. So there's a lot of illusion in this order book, and sometimes looking at these different sell walls, you will have to make a very quick decision. You will have to think ahead what's coming. For example, let me think. So let's say 8,779. So that means there's a seller who wants to sell, or maybe multiple sellers who don't want to sell this low. They want to sell when the Bitcoin, they're happy to sell their Bitcoin when Bitcoin's price goes up until 8,779. But all the buyers want to buy it at a low price, but all the sellers want to sell at a high price. But there's a high sell volume, so maybe Bitcoin's price, because there's a high sell volume, maybe Bitcoin's price will go up. But what happens is that you can also cancel. Let's say Bitcoin's price start going up, then whoever the traders created this big sell wall, they can remove this suddenly, and there can be a lot of such events, and you will have to be master of it, what it truly means. And I hope I can explain this more and analyze this more for my personal purpose. Okay, now the last thing that I want to talk about is we can also take a look at with comparison to S&P, let's say how Bitcoin is doing. So this orange line is S&P. As we can see, Bitcoin is the highest performing asset from the last year. So if we start from 2019 February, over this last 1 year, if you have Bitcoin had many lows and highs, but let's say you bought at this point, if you would have bought S&P, you would make 9%. But if you, even after all this volatility, if you would have bought Bitcoin, it's still 154%. That's why some people argue, why do this speculative short-term trading rather than, but for that you will have to be a believer in Bitcoin, meaning like you understand the fundamental, and Bitcoin's price will go up with all this speculation. But at the same time, it's not that easy. Wait, yes, that is 2019. Okay, so let's put some other currencies here too. Let's say Ethereum. So typically most of the other cryptocurrencies, they kind of lag Bitcoin, meaning like when Bitcoin moves in a certain direction, it takes some time for the other currencies to follow the same trend. As you can see, Ethereum was following the same trend. So that's why if Bitcoin is volatile, but the other cryptocurrencies can be even more volatile than Bitcoin. So professional traders who really believe in Bitcoin, they basically try to maximize their Bitcoin, and they trade all the other cryptocurrencies against Bitcoin, and they try to make more Bitcoin. Okay, and there are Bitcoin futures, which is much scarier. And so there's this another website that I wanted to introduce, that is called dollar cost averaging, which is exactly what I was talking about. So this is the investment calculator. So let's say I buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. Let's say I buy $10 worth of Bitcoin weekly. That means, or let's say 4 weeks a month, right? Let's say I would like to put $25 per week. That means that is $100 a month. So if I would have done over last 3 years, that means, and I started buying on 2017, I am so 25, that is worth $6,000. Okay, oh no, that is Bitcoin's price. Okay, so your percent change, so you would have made 75%. It's not double. Total you would have been investing total 3,925, and that would, after 3 years, it would have been 6,871. At the same time, it depends when you started buying, so that is still a very good time to buy before let's say if you would have bought at this high point like 2 years ago, let's say, or like 1 year ago, like at any point over time you would make money, it seems. So if it's 9 years ago, then okay, accumulate for 9 years starting 9 years ago. Oh my god, if you started with 10,000 9 years ago, you are a millionaire. Okay, cool. So if you would have started 4 years ago, starting 4 years ago, that is 4 times. Okay, 339,000. So, well, I mean, this tells everything. So this says here, buying $25 of Bitcoin every week for 4 years, you would make 339%. Well, even after knowing this, I sometimes also speculate short term and make huge losses. That's what the trader psychology is, what I'm talking about. Okay, thank you guys. I think we have enjoyed this Bitcoin halving countdown, and I am hoping to consistently make more videos on different aspects of blockchain, not only Bitcoin and also but also all the other cryptocurrencies. Some may be technical, some may be hypes, some may be during the time of depression. Okay, all right, thank you.